So, with regards to our nutrition recommendations for wound healing, I figured I would start with our three categories that we normally provide recommendations for, being calories, protein, and fluids. Providing and consuming adequate calories is critical in the wound healing process. Providing adequate calories supports collagen and nitrogen synthesis, therefore promoting anabolism by sparing protein from being used as an energy source. Wound healing is compromised if the body is forced to produce glucose by degrading protein and depleting lean body mass. The decline in lean body mass can also lead to muscle wasting, decline in subcutaneous fat, and then obviously poor wound healing. In general, you want to provide more than 30 kcals per kilogram per day, but obviously that can be individualized based on the patient. For protein, the general recommendation is 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day for wound healing. I'll get more into the specifics of what protein recommendations we make in a few slides. And then finally, for fluids, obviously fluid is very important in the wound healing process as well. Fluids are distributed in the intracellular, interstitial, and intravascular compartments of the body, which means that they can serve as a transport medium for moving nutrients to cells and also removing waste products. There actually isn't an optimal formula yet for determining fluid needs in wound healing patients, but based on the research, it's pretty well accepted to provide 1 milliliter per kcal per day. As with other conditions, you need to monitor for draining wounds, emesis, diarrhea, elevated temperatures, those sort of things, so you can replace the losses from there. Both carbohydrates and lipids assist with meeting the increased energy needs seen in wound healing. These nutrients support the inflammatory response, cellular activity, angiogenesis, and collagen deposition in the healing process. Adequate intake of carbohydrates is necessary for fibroblast production and movement, as well as leukocyte activity. Additionally, carbs stimulate the secretion of hormones and growth factor. But as we know in contrast, prolonged hyperglycemia can also have an adverse effect on wound healing and can promote wound formation. So you kind of have to find that sweet spot, no pun intended. And as you probably know, fats have a pretty strong structural function in the lipid bilayer of cell membranes during tissue growth, so they also have an increasingly important role in the wound healing process. Protein is vital for the growth and maintenance of cells, fluid balance, and blood clotting. Other functions also include immune function preservation, enzyme repair and synthesis, cell multiplication, and collagen and connective tissue synthesis. Since cells involved in the wound healing process require protein for their formation and activity, protein losses can really negatively impact the entire immune system. If impaired, this may delay the progression from the inflammatory to the proliferative phases of the wound healing process. Additionally, in the proliferative and remodeling phases, protein energy deficiencies may decrease fibroblast activity, therefore delaying angiogenesis and reducing collagen formation. So, arginine and glutamine are two conditionally essential amino acids that are really the main focus in wound healing. Arginine regulates the metabolic and physiological functions that are really necessary to support good tissue repair. Supplemental arginine has resulted in significant improvements in wound healing, which has been seen through the protein content in the wound beds, enhanced lymphocyte function, and promotion of positive nitrogen balance. In patients with wounds who have adequate protein intake, the recommended dose of arginine supplementation at this time is 4.5 grams per day. But there have been clinical trials done that they have supplemented with up to 25 grams of supplemental arginine per day, and significant benefits have been shown there too. For glutamine, it's obviously extremely important for tissue repair, and it's used by the inflammatory cells within wounds. So lymphocytes, macrophages, and even some intestinal cells depend on glutamine as their main fuel source. When the body's immune system is affected or it's mobilized because of severe illness or infection, the need for glutamine is dramatically increased. This increased demand ends up lowering the blood glutamine concentration, and it's kind of forced to pull the glutamine stores out of the muscle. Obviously, the loss of muscle glutamine then negatively affects new protein synthesis, so it's kind of just a big wheel that keeps turning. Supplemental glutamine has been used to replete those muscle glutamine levels and preserve lean body mass, which has in turn had a really good effect on the overall wound healing process in some critically ill patients. So I had to do some behind the scenes work to determine what sources of protein exactly were being used in the oral nutrition supplements that we currently offer. I found that across the board, most sources of protein in supplements were either soy protein isolate, whey protein concentration, or milk protein concentrate. From there, I did some research on the average amount of arginine and glutamine present in these substances to kind of determine an average or a ballpark amount of arginine and glutamine present in the products that we currently offer. So just a disclaimer, the numbers here are estimates of a few sources, but I figured they kind of served as a good middle ground or an estimate of what could be in our products. For the sake of time, I'm not going to review this, so feel free to pause your video now if you want to take a longer look at this. So here I picked 5 of our current supplements that we may recommend to support wound healing, or some of our supplements that are higher protein content. As we all know, I'm sure it can be kind of hard to find that sweet spot between either high protein and low carb, high protein and low calorie. Whatever the case may be, it can be hard to find a supplement that's higher in protein and kind of lower in everything else, especially in the case of our diabetic patients, for example. On this chart, I also included the protein source of these supplements. So if you want to reflect back to the previous slide and the arginine and glutamine content of these different protein sources, please feel free to do so. Or if you don't feel like doing the math on calculating the arginine and glutamine content of our supplements, I did it here for you. So as you can see, they're all relatively low in arginine and glutamine content. None of these really provide an adequate amount of those 2 amino acids that really drive the wound healing process. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. And finally, the moment you have all been waiting for, a little bit of information on our new supplements. So Arginate is a Nestle product. It is a wound healing specific nutritional supplement. It is only 25 calories per serving and only 2 grams of carb per serving, but it provides 4.5 grams of arginine per serving or per packet. It's available in orange and cherry flavors, and per their website, it blends well with water, fruit juices, applesauce, and yogurt. The only downfall is I could not find anywhere if there is any glutamine present, but given the very high arginine content, it's still an exceptional choice. And lastly, we have Juven, which is an Abbott product. It's about 80 to 95 calories per serving based on the flavor, and provides 8 to 9 grams of carb per serving. So these numbers are obviously a little bit higher than the arginate version. However, it provides 7 grams of arginine per serving and 7 grams of glutamine per serving. It's available in orange, fruit punch, and unflavored varieties. And on the website, they have a whole recipe book of ways to use it, which includes beverages, entrees, snacks, etc. So I really like this one because it provides both arginine and glutamine, and they're both in a higher content than the arginate version. So luckily, Katie and I had the chance to sample these products in a few different combinations a few weeks back. Here's just a little summary of what products we liked, what we didn't think worked out so well. Obviously, it'll be more beneficial once you're able to taste them yourselves and can provide individualized recommendations, but in the meanwhile, please feel free to use these recommendations if you plan to give these products to your patients or if you plan to recommend them to anybody. We were both pretty in agreement on these likes and dislikes, so hopefully the majority will be as well. So to conclude, there will be an upcoming taste testing in service. I know it can be a lot easier to provide recommendations or answer questions about flavor, mouthfeel, those sort of things about supplements, having tried them yourself. So hopefully that in-service can happen sooner rather than later. Another thing, I would love to hear any patient feedback that you guys receive about these supplements, mostly out of curiosity, but if you find that they are accepted, if they're not accepted, if there's certain combinations that people love or hate, I would be curious to know. So if anybody has very strong feelings about any of them, feel free to shoot them my way. And then finally, as with any in-service or presentation, I want to provide the opportunity to ask questions or ask for clarification. So obviously this isn't an in-person setting, but please don't hesitate to shoot me an email with any questions or concerns. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you guys found this beneficial.